We're very pleased to have him. Matt, call me Matty Hamilton, he says. My mates call me Matty. So Matty Hamilton joins us in studio. Got the book here. Thanks very much for that.
Pleasure.
Travel and Error. Confessions of an Asylum-Seeking Canadian.
Yeah.
Hey? Very solid. Very solid.
That's a funny book.
It's got a catchy title. And I'm just going to briefly set you up and let you take it from there. You are an Ottawa native.
Yeah.
But not really anymore. This is a pit stop. You're back in town. You've become a world traveler, and this has been going on for many, many years. So we'll talk about a few of your destinations and experiences along the way. But you've just come back from a 6-month stay in South Africa where the World Cup's being held right now.
Exactly. South Africa, I think, is my home away from home. Born and raised here in Ottawa, as you mentioned, and in 1998, after 2 years sitting in this rat race in a cubicle with a job that I really hated, I decided enough was enough and sold everything I owned and bought a one-way flight to Glasgow, Scotland, and said, I'm going around the world. And if I like a spot, I'm going to stay. And if I don't, I'm going to keep on going. And about 6 months into the trip, I rolled into South Africa, and my plan was to be there for about 3 weeks. I had this half-baked Cape Town to Cairo plan, and landed in Cape Town and was absolutely blown away with what I discovered. I had zero expectations going in. I knew nothing about the country. Nelson Mandela, apartheid, and that I had a bit of a crime problem. That was it. And Cape Town just caught me off guard. It is a magical city. And I was warned before I went that something happens when you get to South Africa. Something gets inside of you that makes it very, very difficult to leave. And if you are able to leave, you have this overwhelming urge to come back. And it's true. So 3 weeks later, I was supposed to fly out, and as luck had it, I got bumped off my airplane. Supposed to fly to Namibia. Do you mind staying? Our flight's overbooked. And strange turn of events.
What are you going to do for me? Well, no, the flight's overbooked.
Well, you know what? They did for me. I was sitting in the departure lounge ready to go, and I already tried to extend my visa, and it wasn't possible. And they said, look, we'll give you a ride back into town. We'll pay for your hotel. We'll give you a couple $100 for the inconvenience. Your ticket's open for a year, so if you don't want to leave tomorrow, you don't have to. And because you're in the departure lounge, you have to go back through immigration. 3-month visa extension. I just all landed on my lap. These were things that I had been stressing.
That's dumb luck.
It was amazing. And instead of going to the hotel, I actually went back to this hostel where I'd been staying. Because this is the beautiful thing about traveling is the people you meet. When you're in a hotel, you don't know anybody.
Of course.
In these international hostels with these travelers, it's just a fun place to be. So I went back there and went to the bar, bought the guy next to me a beer, started chatting with him. And he was heading on a 2-month promotion trip all across Cape Town. The car was paid for, the gas was paid for, and he had an extra spot. And about 2 years later, I eventually dragged my butt out of South Africa. I actually still have the plane ticket to Namibia in my wallet as a souvenir of how things can change along the way. And 2 years went by and left, and a year later I got pulled back because it really is such a magical place to be.
Well, you were telling us during the commercial break about those 2 years in South Africa and what was able to grab you. So what was it specifically that kept you there for so long as opposed to some of the other places that you went?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, I had a great job. I ran a pub that overlooked the ocean, and it was a pub for travelers. So I had all these great people from all over the world coming through. The people I worked for treated me like a son. I was a part of their family from the moment I arrived, and they let me be me, and they sent me on holiday. They would say, hire somebody to run your pub, take 2 months, and go explore southern Africa. So I was able to use this place called Sinsa as my base and go off and see places like Malawi, or go scuba diving in Mozambique, or through the deserts in Namibia, and then back to this beautiful base. All the whole time, though, it's this diversity of the country. I mean, I just talked about diving in Mozambique or deserts in Namibia. You have the jungles of the Transkei. It's a magical place with this diverse people who are so proud of their country. And when I got there in '99, it was quite a new place to visit. And they just made you feel so welcome from literally the moment you arrived. That is part of the charm that really kept me there as long as it did.
Now, Matty, you talk about how, people just brought you in and were so friendly. And we didn't get a chance to talk before you came on, but last summer at this time, I was just wrapping up a 9-week tour of doing all 30 Major League Baseball stadiums, and for the last month I did that by myself and traveling around North America. And I'm with you in the sense that one of the greatest things about that trip was just meeting new people and finding bonds in kind of hostels and things like that you would have never expected. For example, in Chicago, just happened to run a couple of people at a hostel that were driving cross country from North Dakota, and we went out and had a night on the town in Chicago and San Diego. People who were locals brought me around and showed me the gas lamp quarter, and I just never would have expected that kind of thing, because we're always taught in a way to just avoid strangers and avoid talking to them, and be weary of people that you don't know. But from my experience, it was anything but, where strangers were the kind of people that made your trip as good as it was. And your story is just incredible on how much traveling you've done. But talk about, I mean, just the experience you've had with just meeting new people, and how different it's changed your life in general.
Oh, without question. I mean, you can be in South Africa learning about this country, but you have people from the four corners of the planet coming through this country. And you meet people from all walks of life. People that you might pass on the street here, you think you have nothing in common with. Well, when you're traveling, you do have something in common. You've both given up your comfort zones and gone off to this new country to explore. And there's your bond right off the bat. And without question, some of the closest friends I have to this day are people that I've met on the road. I've got dear friends here in Ottawa that I've known 20, 25 years. But the connection with some of these travelers, and 5, 6 years can go by, and I know that if I see them again, it'll be like 5 minutes. I think that's the biggest misconception about traveling alone, is that
You're not alone.
you're never alone.
Yeah.
It's impossible to find solitude, actually. I mean, you're surrounded by people all the time, and when you're by yourself, you're almost forced into striking up that conversation that you might not have done here in Ottawa. It's great.
Maddie Hamilton's our guest, author, Through Travel and Error, Confessions of an Asylum-Seeking Canadian. All right, so let's get more into South Africa, specifically recently.
For sure.
You were just there. This country's jacked up.
Yeah,
World Cup's here. Just bring us inside. How popular is the footy in South Africa? How excited is the country? How much money was spent as well on these stadiums? Just talk about everything that went into it and how it's all coming together.
Well, for sure. Once they were awarded the World Cup, the country started celebrating. They were jacked from moment one. And when I told people I was heading home before the World Cup, every single South African that I met, even the guy working in the bathroom at Joburg International, asked me, "Why are you leaving now?" And I was like, "Well, I got to go home, and somebody's got to sacrifice and go home and spread the word about this place." And the last few months, the excitement is through the roof. Now, football in South Africa is really the people's sport. White South Africa is more focused on rugby and cricket. And the last year that has really, really changed. I don't know if you've seen the movie Invictus, but sport is very, very important in that country, and it's certainly a rallying point for everybody. And this experience, this tournament, most people know that it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and they're making the most of it. I mentioned before there was this pride in South Africa and this hospitality that they make you feel welcome. Well, it's skyrocketed. They when you walk into Joburg International now, there's bands going off. Like they make you jacked as soon as you taxi on the runway. It's phenomenal, and I'm very happy for them. Leading up to it, there were a few questions about whether things would be done on time. There was a question about whether or not they'd have enough cement to finish building these stadiums. But I remember leading up to the Olympics in Greece, there were questions about whether or not they would pull it off. I heard that Vancouver didn't have enough snow leading up to the Olympics. So there's always
And they didn't, but they carted it in.
Well, that's just it. So, and I'm sure that South Africa will have a few little hiccups along the way, but they're ready for it. They really have spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of passion preparing themselves to host the world and display their country.